loved rainy days. Every morning, she woke up early and looked out of her bedroom window. Most days, she saw bright sunshine and people rushing to work. But on this particular Saturday, dark clouds covered the sky, and tiny raindrops tapped gently against the glass. Tap, 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 tap. Emma smiled. There was something special about the sound of rain. It made the world feel slower and calmer. The busy streets became quiet, and the air smelled fresh and clean. She wrapped herself in a soft blanket and walked downstairs. Her little house felt warm and cozy compared to the cool weather outside. In the kitchen, she opened a jar of coffee beans. The rich aroma filled the room immediately. Emma whispered, "The perfect day for coffee." She carefully prepared her favorite cup. As hot water flowed through the coffee grounds, steam rose into the air. Soon, she held a warm mug in her hands. Emma carried it to the window seat in her living room. It was her favorite spot in the house. Outside, rain danced on rooftops and sidewalks. Trees swayed gently in the wind. People hurried past with colorful umbrellas. Emma took a sip of coffee. Warm. Warm, comforting. Perfect. As she watched the rain, she opened an old notebook she had not touched in years. Inside were memories, dreams, and stories she had written when she was younger. One page caught her attention. Things I want to do someday. Emma read the list slowly. Travel to new places. Learn to paint. Write a book. She smiled sadly. Life had become busy. Work, responsibilities, and daily routines had pushed many of those dreams aside. The rain continued to fall outside. For the first time in a long while, Emma wondered if it was too late to start again. She took another sip of coffee and looked at the unfinished dreams written on the page. Maybe this rainy day was about to change something? Emma spent the next hour reading through her notebook. Each page carried memories from different parts of her life. Some made her laugh. Others made her emotional. One page described her dream of becoming a writer. At 20 years old, she had imagined herself traveling around the world, meeting interesting people, and turning their stories into books. She smiled at her younger self's enthusiasm. "What happened to you?" she asked softly. The answer was simple. Life happened. There had been jobs, bills, family responsibilities, and unexpected challenges. Slowly, her dreams had been placed on a shelf and forgotten. Outside, the rain grew heavier. Emma stood up and walked into the kitchen for another cup of coffee. As she poured it, she remembered her grandfather. He loved rainy days too. Whenever it rained, he would sit by the window with a steaming mug and tell stories about his adventures. Emma had spent countless afternoons listening to him. "Every rainy day is a gift," he used to say. "Why?" Young Emma would ask. "Because rain forces us to slow down and listen to our hearts." At the time, she never fully understood. Now she did. The rain outside wasn't just weather. It was a pause, a chance to think, a chance to remember. Emma returned to her window seat and watched raindrops slide down the glass. The world seemed quieter than usual. For the first time in years, she felt no pressure to rush anywhere. Her eyes returned to the notebook. Under her old dream of writing a book, she picked up a pen. Then she wrote a single sentence. "Today is the day I begin again." The words looked simple, yet they felt powerful. A warm feeling spread through her chest. The rain continued falling, and the coffee remained warm in her hands. Somewhere between the sound of the rain and the comfort of the coffee, Emma realized something important. Dreams do not disappear. Sometimes they simply wait patiently for us to return. That afternoon, Emma opened her laptop. The blank screen stared back at her. Normally, she would feel nervous. Today felt different. Rain tapped gently against the windows, creating a peaceful rhythm that filled the room. She took a sip of coffee and began typing. At first, the words came slowly. One sentence. Then, another. Soon, an entire paragraph appeared. Emma was writing a story about a young girl who discovered courage during a storm. The story wasn't perfect. Some sentences felt awkward. Some ideas needed improvement. But none of that mattered. She was finally writing again. Hours passed without her noticing. Outside, the rain softened into a gentle drizzle. The sky remained gray, but Emma felt brighter than she had in years. Her fingers continued moving across the keyboard. By evening, she had written several pages. She leaned back and stretched. "Not bad," she said with a smile. For the first time in a very long time, she felt proud of herself. The story wasn't finished. In fact, it had only just begun. But every great journey starts with a first step. Emma remembered another lesson from her grandfather. "You don't have to finish today," he once told her. "You only need to begin." Those words suddenly made perfect sense. She looked around the room. The blanket was still draped over the chair. The coffee mug was nearly empty. Rain still whispered outside. Everything looked ordinary, yet somehow everything felt different. The day had started as a simple rainy morning. Now it felt like the beginning of a new chapter in her life. Emma saved her work and closed the laptop. She wasn't worried about how long the journey would take. She wasn't worried about becoming successful. She was simply happy to have started. Outside, the last drops of rain slid from the rooftops. Inside, Emma smiled. The storm had passed, and something beautiful had begun. The next morning, the rain returned. Emma smiled when she heard it. She prepared her coffee and decided to visit a small cafe a few blocks from her house. The cafe was quiet and welcoming. Soft music played in the background, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. Emma found a seat near the window. As she worked on her story, she noticed an elderly man sitting alone nearby. He was writing in a notebook, page after page, word after word. For nearly an hour, he never stopped. Curious, Emma finally smiled at him. "Working on something important?" she asked. The man laughed warmly. "A novel?" he replied. Emma's eyes widened. "A novel?" "A novel? Yes," he said. "I've been writing it for 6 years." 6 years. Emma repeated. "Good stories take time." The two talked for a while. The man explained that he had started writing after retirement. Before that, he had spent most of his life believing he was too busy. "I wish I had started earlier," he admitted. "Do you regret waiting?" Emma asked. He thought for a moment. "Maybe a little, but I regret not starting far more." His words stayed with Emma. When the man left, he smiled and pointed toward her laptop. "Keep writing," he said, "even when it feels difficult." Emma nodded. "I will." As she watched him walk away, she felt inspired. Everyone has dreams. Some people chase them early. Others discover them later. But what matters most is having the courage to begin. Emma opened her story again. The rain continued outside. The cafe remained warm and peaceful. And with renewed determination, she started typing. The words flowed easier now. Not because writing had become simple, but because she had stopped being afraid. Every sentence brought her one step closer to the dream she had almost forgotten. And that made every rainy day worth it. Several months later, another rainy morning arrived. Emma sat in her favorite window seat with a steaming mug of coffee in her hands. The scene looked familiar. The rain, the cozy blanket, the warm coffee. But Emma had changed. Her story was complete. In fact, she had finished her first book. The journey had not been easy. There were days when writing felt impossible. Days when she doubted herself. Days when she wanted to quit. Yet she kept going. One page at a time. One paragraph at a time. One rainy day at a time. Emma picked up a copy of her book from the table beside her. She smiled as she ran her fingers across the cover. It wasn't just a book. It was proof that dreams can come true when we refuse to give up. Outside, people hurried through the rain with umbrellas. Inside, Emma felt peaceful. She thought about the notebook she had opened months earlier, the notebook that had reminded her of forgotten dreams. She thought about her grandfather. She thought about the elderly writer at the cafe. Most of all, she thought about that simple rainy day when everything changed. Sometimes the biggest transformations begin quietly, not with loud celebrations, not with dramatic moments, but with a cup of coffee, a moment of reflection, and the courage to take one small step forward. Emma lifted her mug and looked out at the rain. The world was still moving. The rain was still falling, but her heart felt warmer than ever. As she took another sip of coffee, she smiled because she finally understood something important. Rainy days are not meant to stop us. Sometimes they arrive to remind us to slow down, listen to our hearts, and rediscover the dreams waiting inside us. And that, Emma believed, was the true magic of a rainy day and warm coffee.